Welcome back to another episode of the podcast, From the Depths of Darkness to the Light of Success. I am your host, Chris Swick, and on this podcast, we talk about mental health, addictions, health and fitness, ADHD, and really anything anyone's afraid to talk about today. We make them afraid to not talk about these things. Now let's break the stigma around the craziness in the world today. But before we get started, head over to that YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and you can find every episode in video format, or head over to Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Anchor FM, wherever the hell you listen to podcasts these days. It's all over the place. And you can also check me out on Instagram at Depths of Dark Side if you want to follow my personal life and anything to do with the podcast, and some great tips about mental health and ADHD and many other sorts of things. But with no further ado, I'd love to introduce to you my next guest. I got Ayjay Gibson, who I also found on Instagram through another, podcasting buddy, Rory Mitchell. We'll give a shout out to Rory today on the show before we get started. Rory's an amazing podcaster, content creator, and just showing love to everyone out there in the world. Go check out his show, The Mitchell Unleashed Report. But now, take it away, Ayjay, and let them know a little bit about you.
Hello. First of all, thanks a lot, Chris, for having me here today. As he said, my name is Ayjay Gibson. I currently reside in London, Ontario. However, I am born and raised mostly in Nassau, Bahamas, so way from far away. But for me, pretty much what I do on a normal basis, I'm not really going to talk about my 9 to 5 job because that's just it is what it is. But for a living right now, what I usually do, I am a mental health advocate. I am a fitness coach as well as athlete when it comes to Olympic weightlifting, and I also stream video games.
That's amazing, man. Let's talk a little bit about the video games. Like, did you deep dive into that and find yourself getting way too caught up in it, sort of thing? Or do you have a balance with that in life?
There's definitely a mixture of that. So definitely would say deep dive into it wherever I'm trying to focus on whether it's video games or anything else in life, I really enjoy immersing myself into that community to the point where I'm constantly watching videos. I'm listening to, if I'm not watching, I'm actually listening to the videos all the time as well. I'm trying to learn the ins and outs, like whether it's something that's going to benefit me or benefit someone else that I know that plays the game. But I usually do a little bit of me just learning it first before I start to do anything else. And 100% of the time, it always turns into me turning into more of a competitive style. So this time around, I'm actually trying to take that step, not really back from the competitive scene because I have been competing in a newer game that I just started in January. But once I started streaming, I wanted to bring forth more of the mental health aspect to it as well, but only whenever it seems fit to do it. So it has to come like really genuine, which happens to be like almost every stream now. There'll be like a little segment where I just start to go about mental health, where, okay, let's take this part of the game. What just happened? What can we learn from this? How can we correlate that with something in our real life? And it just seems to be super enjoyable, if I'm being totally honest with you.
That's amazing, man. And it's cool how you integrate mental health into your streams and stuff. So, why the mental health into the streams?
The way I see it, if we're being totally honest, if you play any online game, no matter what people say about, oh yeah, like this community is really good, this community is the best, like I never feel any like negative sides of it, that's a lie. There's every online community, it's always going to be some type of toxic behavior behind it. Where if you actually read the comments or actually listen to what some people are saying, there's a lot of things like gaslighting, or people just wanted to like, push someone else down and be like, oh, you're really shit at this, or you're terrible at this. But instead of doing that, what I like to do, I'll think about those thoughts at times for sure. I'll be like, okay, feeling myself, I'm doing really good in this match. Yeah, but at the same time, I always look to see where I can improve myself, but I can also help someone else improve on an aspect where they seem as though they're lacking. So let's say if I'm playing with somebody, especially if it's off or on stream, if I'm playing with somebody and they feel as though like they're really doing bad that match, like I'll just be like, hey, don't look at it that way. The main focus I want you to have is literally have fun. That's the reason why you're playing the game, isn't it? You playing to have fun, not really to be like, oh, I'm this top esport athlete. I'm only playing this to make money, blah 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 practice. No, that's not going to be 90. 99% of our lives on a normal basis. But you also have to remember to have fun first and foremost. And then there's lessons that you can take from any and everything in life, whether it's virtually or in person.
I love that you say that having fun first and foremost, because it's not all about making the money or winning all the time, especially in esports, you know what I mean? Like, your ego can probably get the best of you if you're at the top of the league or the game or the esports league or whatever the hell they call it. I'm not too much into it anymore. I used to play a little bit of a few different games and stuff with my son when he was a little smaller, but I can't get back into it. A little bit of NHL once in a while on the PS4 and I'm
Okay.
happy, but
Yeah.
what games are you into lately?
So
Which ones
for
you really taken on to?
lately, as of January, I started playing Apex Legends after spending, I think, a total of 4 months playing Call of Duty Warzone. But those also like I played 2 months back in November 2021. Took a long break because I was like, oh, this game is just so toxic. Everything's broken about it. And then I spent another 2 months last year playing it again, but just completely pushed it aside, just mostly for the reason of how the developers treat their staff. And I just don't agree with how anything's happening with them. And they also just allow their game to be completely broken. They don't care about fixing it. It literally just became, oh, we're making 5 point something million dollars a day. We're not going to fix her, not going to take care of our staff, and we're also going to try to hide a lot of shady things that have been coming to light. And ever since I've been seeing like all those things coming to light, I was like, okay, I don't really want to be associated with this at all. So I
And
decided to
that was
go
Call of
towards a
Duty?
different game. Yes. I don't know if you've heard about any of the lawsuits or anything with Activision Blizzard.
No, I really haven't heard. Like I said, I don't
S-
follow too many
Yeah,
video game things or whatever. I'm sure if I asked my son, he might tell me a little bit about it or something because he played that.
it's
Or
really dark.
Apex was a
Really
cool game.
dark.
I have tried Apex though on a lighter note.
Try it again.
Apex, no, it was a cool game. Like, I did try it a few times because I wasn't really first person shooter or shooting game guy. I always liked my sports games or driving or GTA or something like that. That was about the extent of
GTA.
my shooting game sort of thing. But I like
Yeah.
the aspect of the story mode in the games.
Yes.
Like back in the day, there were so many cool like story mode games and stuff like that, like on the original PlayStations and stuff.
Things
You
like
got like
Tomb Raider.
Splinter Cell.
Oh, Tom Clancy games. It's so easy to get immersed into those. Like those games scare me. There's a franchise called The Elder Scrolls. My favorite game from the franchise would be their latest edition, which was back in November 11th, 2011, Skyrim. I've put so many hours into that game. I'll probably put like at least 1,000 hours into that my second or third year of college at St Clair on Xbox 360 for me to then purchase it on PC. Realize like, holy crap, there's so much more to this on PC. There goes another like 500 plus hours. And then every time I upgraded my laptop, I would always buy another version because they would keep adding on and on to it. I was like, okay, I think I played probably like 15 hours of it last year total. Like I still play it every so often, but I also have to like remind myself, hey, you get very lost in these games, and I'm talking to myself a lot to the point where people were always telling me like, why don't you just stream like this? I don't know, because I'm usually talking to myself or to the video game characters. I'm like, no, Lydia, come back. So that's pretty much like how it is with me with those games. So I try not to play those ones unless it's okay. I've been waiting like 5 plus years for this. I'm gonna buy this, and there goes my show so life for the next X amount of weekends.
There's another game that I got into because I got it for Christmas one year for my son actually, but he never played it. It was by Blizzard with all those like characters and it was
Diablo?
no,
Was it a shooting game?
yes.
Oh,
Overwatch, man. That game was actually badass.
I
Like
enjoyed that
Overwatch
too.
was badass because you actually had to work as a team because you couldn't have all guys just shooters and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like you needed a healer, you needed a defender. Like it was actually cool 'cause it was like
Yes.
all about teamwork that game, and that's what I loved about that game. I met some really cool cats playing on that game too. So
Oh man. That's something that's really like been helpful throughout my, I want to say most of my life actually. Like back for me, my mom passed in 2014, and then I really got into online games to start with a game called Maple Story. And then from Maple Story, I went to a Spanish game called Regnum Online, which since then they've changed their name several times. But a lot of my closer friends have been friends that I've made through gaming like all around the world. Like the reason why I honestly even still have Facebook to this point, I rarely use I've never really gotten into using Facebook the way it was intended to be used, but it was always because okay, I always saw myself as a nomad in a way where I would not even just move from city to city, which I tend to do every so often, but I would move from country to so the best way for me to keep in touch with my family and those friends were literally, okay, you guys all use Facebook. I'm gonna keep my Facebook kind of active, or at least use the messenger chat just to be able to stay in touch with them. But they've literally honestly gotten me through so many hard times to the point where it's like the amount of hours I've spent with them were just like getting to know them over the years. Not even, oh, we played together for a couple of months or anything. Like they put 6+ years into a video game together to the point where it's like they're like family to me. So I've watched them all have kids. I've watched them all get married. This is like where it's an underlooked part of video games that everybody hasn't like really gotten a grasp on as yet.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. You can build so many amazing relationships through the online gaming world nowadays. It's pretty cool. And it's just like building the relationships I built through this podcast. It's another
Yes.
cool, just the connections you make and the friendships and relationships you build through the doing a podcast or anything like this is amazing because you get to stay in contact with those people and have personable conversations outside and off the show too. It's and get to meet some of these people too. So it's really cool to see and grow as a human at the end of the day. Let's touch a little bit, if you don't mind, on the death of your mother. Now, how did that affect you at that point in time back in 2014 when your mother's death came about?
When that happened, man, actually, it wasn't even 2014. The more I think about it, it happened in 2006. I was 14. So my
Okay, I
correction there,
apologize.
yep. No, it was my fault. I said the wrong year, but I remember I was 14. So with me, pretty much the way my mom was literally one of my best friends, if not my bestest friend of all. She always told me everything in a straight up way so that I would understand, but she would also make sure that it wasn't so raw to the point where life would just seem scary to me. So with her and my dad, they separated when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I remember it like literally almost yesterday, just me standing at the front door of the apartment we were all living in, and them just asking me the question, "Who do you want to go with, your mom or your dad?" I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know what the word divorce meant, so it was just like, I want to stay with mommy. I feel like she needs me, and so that was that part. And it was just like, okay, when he gets of this age, he'll come live with my dad and we'll go from there. But pretty much my mom, she literally single mother raised me from absolutely nothing to part of who I am today. Like whether she was around or not, all the lessons that she's instilled in me will never ever be forgotten or will ever be taken for granted in the way that she was someone who was always supportive. Like I've always been someone who was big into sports from playing basketball to going to volleyball, trying out soccer, not sticking with that because I realized how much I hate running on a field. So like literally swimming, kickboxing, so many things. Like she was always there to 80% of all my practices. She came to every single game or sporting event that I had. She would always take care of myself as well as whoever was my teammates. The coach, she would like make sure, hey, if you need an assistant to make sure these kids were taken care of, she was literally always there. And honestly, since then, I can't say that I've ever felt like a support like that to be like, okay, this person's always there, no matter what, outside of my wife. It's always makes you think you never know what you have until you don't have it anymore. So it's sometimes I'll hear some kids bad mouthing their parents over like a Discord call or something. I'll like have to some whoa, 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 you gotta stop right there and be like, my mom won't let me do this. I'm like, at the end of the day, you gotta respect that your mom's letting you play this game, that your mom doesn't have to bring you food while you're playing the game, but you're still shouting at her. No, like either you're gonna respect her or I'm just gonna not play with you at all. So there's things like that, but the way it affected me wasn't even just like mentally or emotional. So the way my mom passed, it was more so I don't want to bring up a part of that just because I know it could cause some issues with both of us in some form or light. But it wasn't just her passing away, it was more of a rape into a murder, and then it turned into the person set our house on fire. So we had just moved into a condo maybe 5 months or so, maybe even less. But took her away from the house, did what he had to do, or did what he wanted to do, brought her back to the house and set her bedroom on fire. My bedroom was two doors down. So there was a bedroom, bathroom, and then my bedroom was just before getting to the stairwell. And I swear to you, like, the only reason why I probably survived that all was because I heard her voice calling my name, literally saying, AJ, you need to wake up. So I'm like thinking like, oh, I don't want to wake up. Like, still like dark outside. I'm supposed to be going to a field trip to the beach today to a new high school I was about to start going to. But then she's like waking, like I felt someone like shake me, like, AJ, you need to wake up. I wake up, I hear some cracking. Like I'm like, oh, what's that sound? I look at the door. I'm like just seeing like lights flashing underneath the door because it was like pretty much a wooden door, but I'm seeing like lights flashing there. So I'm like, okay, why is there's like a cracking sound coming? I tried to touch the doorknob for me to open it. And it was like super awesome. Like, oh, what is this? I'm like, grab a pair of clothes, some pair of my clothing that's on the floor. I'm a sloppy kid. And I go to open the door. So I'm like, oh, this flames just burst into my room. Whoa, what the hell? So I'm like yelling out to her. I'm like, Mom, mommy, like, not getting any response or anything. So then I jump over the flames just to look, and there's like more flames by her door. So I'm like in a panic, like, okay, what to do? Think fast, think fast. Luckily, by the stairwell to the top of the stairwell, we had a window that was like pretty easy for us to open as well. We already had one other neighbor that lived in the condo next to us, and the other two condos had nobody living in theirs yet, but we had neighbors a little bit back. So like I'm yelling out of the window, like just like help, I need help. There's a fire. Like luckily a few people heard it to the point where by the time I was able to like get underneath the fire and head downstairs to go grab a bucket, I had two other people helping me, knocking on the door to wake up the neighbors so I can get help from them as well. But then no matter what we tried to do, like putting out the fires, getting to the room, I honestly stayed downstairs because I was just like super paranoid. But then eventually, once they got to her room and they started to try to open it, they realized the door was like not opening because it started to melt the metal around it. And so by the time that I kicked the door down, I just like heard one of the guys say, "Is that Nikki?" My mom's name is Nicola, but they're like, "Is that Nikki?" And I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I really get feeling about this at all. So I literally just ran downstairs and I waited until like I heard the next door neighbor said, "Oh no." I was like, this is not what I want to be hearing right now. So then one of the guys, I overheard him saying to the neighbor, like, Nikki, I don't think Nikki's alive. Like, she's burnt to a crisp. Like, we're waiting for the fire department and the police officers to come and everything. And just me hearing that alone, I just lost it. The last thing I remember is me literally just like punching into a metal fridge. I don't know how I didn't break my arm, but somehow I dented the fridge, and me just like bawling my eyes out, like just crying and crying until my dad literally came to pick me up. No, I wasn't listening to anybody. Like I could see them talking to me, but I could not hear anything. I was completely checked out until like I saw my dad just like paranoid as crap, and he started crying as well. I'm just, oh man. And he started telling me what's been happening or what they did, how they tried to save her in any way. And I was just like, oh, so from there, it's just like I didn't trust a lot of people, and I became super, even more like sheltered and more of an introvert because I always saw myself as, although I was athletic, I preferred to always hang with what everybody would look as like the nerdy kids per se. So they were the people I preferred to hang out with, even though I was accepted to hang with any group of friends wherever I went. I still always found my way going to more towards the introverts or people who are more into arts, just because of the way I saw how they portrayed or expressed themselves. It always spoke volumes to me to be like, okay, like you have a talent that I really enjoy, or there's something about you that pulls me towards you. I don't feel like you're gonna try to two-face me in any way, or you're gonna try to hurt me. So that was always like a fear that I had from there. And to be honest, like I probably went 2 months or so without talking to anybody. Like it would be like a word here or there. Are you hungry? Shake my head. Like sleeping every single day, like probably 15 hours of the day. I honestly just didn't know what to do with myself. It was like the person who took care of me, who raised me, who taught me everything I knew at the time. Like they just weren't there. And the last memory I had of them, luckily, was a good memory of it just being like she made some food that night. It was time for her to get ready to start heading to bed because she knows she had to wake up early to get me to my summer school at the time because I was just about to change high schools, like I was saying. But it was literally of us racing up the stairs, like just being like, okay, let's see who's going to get up the stairs, and let's like just pushing each other in the stairs, like, oh, just having a nice little fun race. And then just being like, okay, mom, I'm going to bed as well. I love you too. And that was literally it. What I could say that I'm grateful for is those were the last words that I've ever heard from her that she heard from me because everything she went through, it just meant like I watched her go through so many relationships, like just trying to like not even find just happiness just for herself, but she always wanted to find like someone who would help take proper care of me as well. And another thing with that was I wasn't even supposed to be born. So she had stage 4 endometriosis, and she was, by doctors, they pretty much said that she was barren, like she could never have a kid or anything. And no matter how much her and my dad tried, it just always a failure until miraculously I popped up and they're just like, wow. So I was labeled as the miracle child there for a while as well too. But depression had hit me for really hard. Like I feel for my dad as well too, where he was just trying to help me in so many senses, but anger and just depression would always take over to the point where I would lash out back at him. I got to the point where I would cut myself too, and nobody knew about it until eventually, like I left home from where my dad and my stepmom lived. I literally just packed my bag because I was like so frustrated with everything in life, and I just said, "Fuck this all," and packed up a bag and just left. I lived with my grandma, and my aunt for a short bit, but a part that the rest of my family had no idea about, or they still don't know about, that they'll find out when they probably watch this episode, was there was a short time, like a few weeks, where I was actually homeless because I didn't want to go home. I just didn't know who to trust. I didn't know who I could confide with. I didn't know if I wanted to talk with anybody. And I lived in a park like for a good 2 weeks, literally just living off of scraps of what I had inside my backpack or whatever little bit of money that I had saved up because my mom, what she was really good with was teaching me really good life lessons. So my first job I had when I was 8 years old, just delivering flyers around the hotel that she worked at. And as she climbed the ranks, she would always take me with her just as her head manager would take her with him as well. And so I went from I was making good money too, so it wasn't like super hard for me to like, just walk somewhere, walk to a convenience store, grab snacks. Never grabbed actual food. It was always like cookies. So I have an obsession with cookies
Cookies are the
because of
best,
it.
man.
Literally.
Cookies are
But
the
nobody
best.
ever really understood, okay, this guy just really loves cookies. But no, like I fed myself cookies for a good while until eventually it was kind of like my stepmom and one of my younger sisters. She would every so often I would walk to my grandma's house, just give them a call and see how they were doing and everything. And it was actually them that spoke to me in a way that made me want to go back home to start to patch things up with my dad, like start to apologize and just try to be like, hey, let's actually form a proper relationship. You're only trying to like help me become like a better person as well. You're my father. I don't know what's happened with me, the hormones, everything, like just anger, everything. But it was one day when I was talking to my stepmom, she was like literally telling me, your sister literally goes to your bedroom door just about twice every single day. And she'll open the door and just asks, where's AJ? Where's AJ? She's 3 years old at this time. So it's like, oh, I never wanted any of my siblings. I mostly have all sisters, but it's like I never wanted any of them to like just feel like they can't come to me or talk to me about anything either. So it was like that was what made me be like, don't do this. Get off your egotistical horse. Go home. Like your family wants you home. Everybody wants you to just be safe. Just go home. And so that's like how it made me go home to start to try to patch things out, make things better, and actually open up to them and be like, hey, look on my dresser. See, if you lift this up, you'll see there's a razor. Just so you guys know, like how depressed I've been. I literally used to cut myself at times because I just didn't know what else to do. And like I had no other reason. Like It wasn't as though like my dad wasn't taking care of me or anything. It was just I was so depressed, and no matter how much therapy I would go to, it wasn't helping because that
Well,
wasn't
it's like
what I
almost
felt like I
like an
needed.
addict doing drugs or drinking
Exactly.
alcohol. That was your way of escaping the pain that you were in as well, you know what I mean? Just escaping reality at the end of the day.
Literally, because there have been times too, going years into the future, where I fell into a daily habit of alcohol all the time, and that was like literally from heartbreak afterwards. So after, let's go fast forward several years later, I got bored one night. Whenever I tell the story, people are like, "What? Oh, what do you mean?" One night I got really bored. My Xbox Live wasn't working, and my dad was like, he was in the States getting ready, like he was like around Thanksgiving time, so he would always go to the States for his birthday, like hang out with his brother, who's like also his best friend. And I was waiting for him to come back to bring my Xbox Live card so I could play with my friends online and everything again. So I'm like, oh, I'm tired of playing like just the practice range. What am I gonna do? I had this like little globe about this big, and I just spun. I kept spinning. I was like, you know what? Let's do something different. Wherever my finger lands, I'm just gonna figure out a way to move there. So I kept going, and then eventually I just stopped it, and it landed on Canada. So I was like, okay. Went onto my computer, went onto the family's computer, started like looking at stuff like Canada. I'm like, don't they just live in igloos there? Like this
What is the most common
literally,
misconception?
don't they just live in igloos and like they ride on moose and stuff? Okay, my finger landed there, so maybe I'll see Rocky and Bullwinkle like in person or something. Like I don't know what's gonna happen. Started like Googling things about Canada. I was like, okay, maybe I'll just go to school there. Like I'm getting ready to graduate high school. Maybe I'll apply for school there. So I was like, no, okay, nah, 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 nah. Googling, wait, but it's cold. I need to go somewhere that's warm because my
This
dad
man's never been in the
was.
cold area.
And I have the coldest place I've been at that time was literally Florida, which is not that cold at all
It's
in
not cold.
comparison. It's just like the Bahamas. So it's like, okay, I'm Googling around like, wait, okay, my dad always tells me and my sister and my stepmom is like, okay, he always tells us that we can't handle the cold because like he went to school and he went to college in Connecticut for a while as well too. So he was adjusted to it. Like he lived in the States for years upon years. So it's like, okay, he's used to it. I have no idea what snow even looks like in person other than on TV. So I'm like thinking this fluffy thing is gonna be nice and cool. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be nice. But I started Googling like, okay, hot colleges or warm colleges in Canada, and it brings it to Southern Ontario. So, okay, but my dad says I should pretty much study, like whatever I do in college, I should study something I enjoy. So I've always had a knack for technology. So I'm like, okay, technology in hot colleges in Canada. Feel like that was along the lines of what I Googled. And two schools came up, Say It in Calgary, and when I just looked up Calgary, I was like, wait, I have a friend from one of my games who lives in Calgary. Let me ask her, I was like, yo, what's the weather? She goes like, it's always cold there, like around winter time. Like, does it snow there? She does it snow? What kind of question is that? Like, honestly, I don't know anything about Canada, but she's like, yeah, it's really cold here. So then I still applied there. I got accepted there like within 2 days, but then I also applied to St. Clair. The reason I applied to St. Clair, I shit you not, was because on the website it said Canada, no, yeah, Canada's hottest college in Southern Ontario. So I was like, okay, I can be warm there. I can probably wear a t-shirt year round. Like, okay, this is good. Applied there. 4 days later, I got the acceptance letter from there as well. And I just remember going into the living room when everybody's just like sitting down watching TV. I'm like, I have to tell you guys something. They're like, what's happening? I'm like, I'm moving to Canada. They're like, what do you mean you're moving to Canada? Like, I'm moving to Canada. They're like, you can't just move to Canada. I got accepted into two schools, and then like, when did you apply for this? I always did things by myself. Like, I was always just either playing video games, editing videos for the video games, or just going outside and playing basketball. But that's literally all I really did with my free time. So they're like, what do you mean? I thought you were like playing games in your room. Yeah, I was doing that, but I was also like looking for other stuff. What made you want to go to Canada? I'm just like, I don't know, just gonna go to Canada. And they're like, okay, so
I'm going to live in igloos, going to play with the
literally,
Eskimos.
that's literally what I said. I was like, I'm gonna go live in an igloo probably, but I went for a warm. I'm gonna pick the warmer place, and they're like, can you study what you want to study in that one more place? And they're like, yeah, like I think so. I didn't even look at everything else, but all I knew is I applied for net computer science networking. So I was like, hey, it's not the exact type of computer things that I want to do, but it's computers. How bad could it be? I learned later that I was like, oh my God, this is so stressful. But
This is not what I wanted to do.
I liked my first year so much. Like it was like actually like more hands-on, but it got more fun again by the third year. But outside of that, it was just like, oh, this is not what I want to do at all. I do not want to feel like I'm inside of a dungeon, but I still stick through with it until the last semester. But before I go there, this is where competitive gaming like did a lot for me. So I didn't get a scholarship or anything from the government back home. Neither did I for at St. Clair. But for the first semester, I tried out for the basketball team. Just didn't see eye to eye with the coach on some things. So like I just stopped going to practice after I made the team, which is like so weird. But me and one of my best friends, we would always just watch all the college games, like whether it was in Canada or in the States. We'd always watch all the games together and just be like, "Oh, look, that could have been yeah, but I prefer to play video games." So he was like, "Why don't you do some more with it?" At that time, I was already like kind of playing Call of Duty like pretty competitively with game battles. So for back then, it was like under Major League Gaming, which stands for well, which is also MLG, which I don't think really does anything now these days. But it got to the point where I got so good, I was missing so many classes. But this is not my full fault. The reason why I was missing so many classes was because all of my assignments could be turned in online, and all I had to do was show up for tests. And once I realized that, I was like, I'm just going to play video games all the time. So it got to the point where my dad would send me like 250 bucks every 4 weeks and 200 bucks every 2 weeks. The additional $50 was to make sure I could pay my phone. So I was on like this like little those push slide phones. I had one of those. So like I made sure everything was like the cost of living for me was like super cheap. I was purposely living off of ramen, KD, hot dogs, and pizza pockets.
I even make that once in a while still.
Oh
I'll
man,
bring it back.
pizza pockets was not a thing in the Bahamas. It probably still isn't now, but once I discovered that, everything
And go buy the
got
big
really
Costco
bad.
pack and you're good to go.
That's literally it, like, it was like a big box, and but I was eating them, like, 4 at a time, like, breakfast time, I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna have some cereal for breakfast, lunch, I'll have some ramen, those, like, 2 packs of ramen, and then dinner, I'll be like, "No, I gotta have, like, 4 to 6 pizza pockets," and I'll literally just stay in my room the entire time for that first year, and I would literally only go out for parties and stuff, like, on campus or at the dorms, but what changed a lot of things was once I started like making money from it, like just doing competitive matches. So I was like ranked pretty high at the time too. I think when first got into it, after about 2 months, I would always have like friends who were being very blunt to be like, "Hey man, you need to be more consistent with like how well you do in these games." But it got to the point where every match I was playing, I was winning a minimum of 200 bucks per game. So then I just called my dad up one day and he's like, "Hey, how much do you need me to send you this time?" I'm like, "I don't need you to send me anything anymore." He's like, "What do you mean?" So I started like telling him like, "Oh, I'm making money from video games." He's like, "How is that even possible?" Trying to explain it to him. He never fully understood until eventually I entered a really big competition and my team, we won 30,000 bucks a person. And that was enough for me to pay for the rest of my time in college. And then once I told him that, he's like, "We're sure this isn't a scam?" No, like I actually got the money. What do you mean? I literally just put it all towards school. He's like, "I'm glad you did that, but I don't understand how this gaming thing works." And at that time, like I never wanted to really have long conversations with anybody because I was like, I need to go back to my room. I need to practice. I need to play. Like I was so addicted to it, but at the same time too, I was like really good at it too. So that's when I started to feel like more independent with everything. But later on, as the last semester before I was about to graduate with it, I decided to drop out for silly reasons. That was to me was like me feeling like I was in love with the girl that I was seeing at the time. We got our own apartment and everything because I had the funds to like pay for it and stuff too. And she was really taking care of a lot of things as well around there whenever I needed help with it too, or whenever she just wanted to make sure that she knew we both knew that she could be independent on her own. And at some point during that, my stepmom got diagnosed with cancer, and then I just had instant flashbacks to everything. I was like, I don't want to lose another mom. No, this isn't happening. So I decided to go back home for which was supposed to be about 2 to 4 weeks, but I ended up staying like several months that turned into a few years just because by the time I went back home, I want to say that August, and that girl I was dating at the time, she came to visit and everything that Christmas season because we were like, okay, we've been apart for like so long, like we need to see each other. But by January, she called me up and she was just, I have to tell you something. And that was like the end of our relationship right there. She had cheated in some other bad things. So I was like, I was broken. Like she told me that while I was at a place that I was working too. I just remember like tears coming down my eyes, like the general manager of the hotel, he's just like looking at me like, "Are you okay?" No, I'm not. Let's go for a walk. I'm like talking to him. So it's just telling him, explaining him everything. He's like, okay, what can I do for him? Can I work more? And that's where I was like, yeah, sure. Like, what you want to work? Can I just work like 16 hours a day? And he's like, I don't know if you could do that. I was like, just please, I need to like just be distracted. But it would be 16 hours of work for about 3 to 4 months. And every night after I would leave, I would always go to a bar and I would drink until it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Like literally wait until it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I would proceed to go home, take a nap to go right back to work around 8 o'clock that morning and repeat the cycle every single day. But I literally just felt I didn't know what else to do other than just drink. So that's where one of those other addictions came from for me.
What would you do? And I appreciate you sharing that story, man. That was an amazing little bit about yourself and come from where you went and everything in between, man. So, very grateful for you to be able to share that story openly and honestly from the heart, AJ. So, I want to ask you a question though. What would you do with an extra hour in a day?
An extra hour day to day, I honestly would just spend it with my wife. There's so many things I'm grateful for with her. Most of it literally honestly being like how strong she shows me that she can be, where there's a lot of things where I purposely tell myself I'm not going to stress about this just because of everything I've gone through with life and me always constantly being reminded every time I feel like I'm in the dumps where I'm like, okay, my family always reminds me this. You do have family and you do have friends that care about you and that will always be there for you whenever you need to. You just need to make sure like you remember to reach out yourself and check up on everybody else. But with my wife, like just knowing her story and everything and knowing everything she's been going through, whether it's like recently or over the years, the fact that she sometimes forget of how strong she is mentally, an hour a day with an extra hour a day, that's not literally a no-brainer for me to just want to spend it with her.
That's amazing, man. And spending it with the ones you love most is the most important thing because like you said, and we've touched upon, you never know when someone's gonna go, so never take them for granted at the end of the day.
Exactly.
You should never take any relationship, any loved one for granted. I always tell your loved ones that you love them. Make sure you tell them that. Make sure you reach out
That's
to them. Don't let things fester, a little argument or something. Like, make up about it. You can forgive. That starts with you about forgiving, and it's all about the inside work with forgiveness. It's not about forgiving them for what they did. But you can still remember what they did. That did hurt you, but in order to have forgiveness and stuff, you have to have empathy and compassion and kindness. And that starts with you from the inside out. And I'm reading a book on forgiveness and anger right now and stuff like that. And it's really teaching me a lot and really getting me to dig deep of the things that have really hurt me in my past. You know what I mean? But I can't sit there and dwell on them and have all, these revenge fantasies and stuff like that either on other people, because that's not what does revenge do? It's either you're gonna end up in jail or dead yourself. So
literally,
you're in no better way ahead if you're dead to anyone.
nope, not at all. And it also brings back up one of your recent podcast episode too with Cody Burns. Like you both spoke about that too, where it's like in order for you to even think about doing that, you need to learn how to forgive. Like you can't just go through life just being like, oh, I can't forgive myself. It's gonna just leave you stagnant in one spot the entire time, and there's no room for growth. What I like to talk about is always self-development, self-growth. that always starts with you having to forgive your own actions. Like before you can even think about forgiving someone else, like you have to think about, okay, why was I even so upset with them? Yeah, it could have been an action they did or did not do, but what was it inside internally within me that made me like act the way I did, where I can just take a step back, take a few breaths, take a sip of water, maybe.
Yeah,
And
sit back and process it. Learn
yeah,
to
literally,
process these things. Don't always just act, act, act. Because usually when I just react right away, it's usually not a good thing either. It's usually I'll say something that I don't want to say. I didn't mean to say, but you did say it, Chris. So you must have meant it at the time or whatever. But no, lots of the time I just don't think before I say. I just do, and that's never good.
I was definitely like that for so long. Like I would just get so angry like all the time to the point where now I'm constantly asked like, how are you so calm with this? And I'm like, because before I say something, I say it in my head and I'm like, I will make this weird face or something, like, or it was gonna be like a mean thing, and then I'll like take a step back and then be like, okay, get what you're saying. Forgive me if I'm not saying this correct. And I'll start making like a lot of extra pauses if I need to, because I'll reword this in your head, reword this. Don't say this like this. Think about how you're saying this. If you want to have an actual conversation with this person, or if you want to also de escalate a situation, like you also need to remember to take a step back yourself. Forgive yourself for having those thoughts. Forgive that person that you're talking to for possibly doing something or saying something that might have triggered something for you as well. Like they may not have known. 90% of the time, they probably don't even know that they said something or did something to bother you in the first place. But the way we can come to that is literally through purposeful conversations with purpose. There we go. I prefer that way.
I like that. No, man, for sure. Having conversations with purpose is huge. Like that's how you better your communication skills and put some thought into what you're going to say. Sometimes we have to take a step back and process. And I'm really trying to learn because I am the worst, the ultimate worst for not processing things and just doing. And it's usually not a good thing when I just do and not think about the consequences of my actions or words that are about to come out. So sometimes I need to think up top, all right, is this the right thing to say? What is going to be the consequences if I do say this? All right, it's not going to be a good consequence or reaction. Maybe I shouldn't say that then, or just keep my mouth shut if there's nothing nice to say either.
That's always so much easier said than done, though, because like when you're in the moment, it's so much harder to just, like, bite your tongue and be like, "Shut up, AJ, just don't say anything," or just nod your head, "Okay." You can always go back and try to, like, say something, but it's so hard to, like, just not say things at times.
Sure.
So, I feel like it's just human nature, to be honest, but we live and we learn. That's the purpose of us, like, continuing to grow each and every day. It's like
There
a
there
shark in
there's
the water.
there's a difference between being rigorously honest and being ignorant though too, and honest at the same
Yes.
time. There's a fine line there too, so being honest is totally different than being rigorously honest, shooting from the heart, but sometimes if it's gonna be an ignorant comment or an ignorant response, then there's no need to say it at the end of the day because it's not gonna do you any better, it's just gonna do more harm than good.
Which is so true. I
Yeah.
I need to remind myself of that more too, because 'cause I'll just wait until I get home and I'll just start venting to my wife, or if I have a little break or something, I'll start texting my wife and be like, "Oh my god, this happened," and she'll be like, "How does it make you feel?" I'm like, "Thank you for starting to, like, ask questions like that," because she may know it, but I'm not sure if she fully realizes it, but sometimes whenever I'm, like, venting to her, her asking me certain questions allows me to stay calm as well, and as if I'm, like, texting her as I'm venting to her, as I'm texting her, I'm, like, reading it back and be like, "Holy crap, I'm actually, like, really upset about this matter," and I'll be like, so it starts to, like, calm me down with some of this. She'll be like, "How does this make you feel? Are you okay?" And I'll be like, "No," or "Yes," or even "Not right now, but I know I will be at the end of the day or by the time I'm done talking with you about this."
So that's awesome, AJ. It's nice to have that supportive partner as well. And I enjoy having that myself as well with my partner, Megan, too. So it's nice to have that very supportive partner to have on your side and who will listen to you without judgment and stuff like that. I want to touch a little bit on your fitness and I know you had to shut down a business and stuff like that, but you've overcome things and finding the next hurdle to overcome. What important rules have you learned about the business that will make you more successful in the future though?
important rules about that would literally be most important rule is to also have a plan to fail. But I feel like something that's more important is just never be afraid to try something that you want to try because at the end of the day, you can live life by trying things and having experience with it or not trying at all and questioning yourself for years and years when you're a lot older thinking like what could have happened if I had tried this or where would I have been if I had even tried to pursue this? Like, you never know. And even if something doesn't go the way you want it to go, there's so many life lessons to learn from it. And there's so much more that can come from it. And it never means that it's the end of anything. If anything, it's the start of something new and it makes a stronger version of you.
I love that you say that. Don't ever be afraid to try anything new. Like you said, if you don't try it, what's the worst that you're never gonna know what it was all about. It's just like asking someone something or asking someone that something to someone that you don't know the answer to. You're never gonna know if you don't ask. The answer's always gonna be no if you don't ask. It's
Yep.
just like sales. The answer's always gonna be no if you don't ask for that sale.
You miss 100% of the shots that
Yeah,
you don't take.
just the Wayne Gretzky says.
Yes.
And it's so true though, like, you definitely do miss 100% of the shots you don't take because if you're not willing to try something new and explore your options, explore different avenues, you're gonna be stuck in that same fixed mindset. We want the growth mindset here today, you know what I mean? You wanna learn to grow and grow as a person, and individual, as a business, as a couple, become a power team, all those types of things, man. And it's all about growth and exploring different avenues you haven't tried yet. If there's something new out there for anyone listening there that you haven't tried, honestly, go out and try it. You can't say you don't like it till you try it. So those young kids out there that don't like to eat their vegetables and say, I don't like those vegetables. Have you tried the vegetable? No. Then you can try it. Then you can tell me you don't like it or not. But if you haven't tried it, then you can't say you don't like it. I hate when people that was one of my pet peeves, people saying that they hate even adults if they say they don't like it. Well, have you even tried it? Whether it's sushi or seafood or whatever. I understand if you have an allergy to certain things or whatever.
It's different.
If it's different, but if you don't tell me you don't like something if you actually have never even tried it, man. That is one of my pet peeves. I despise. I don't like using the word hate. I despise when people say that. It makes me
You have to
cringe.
yeah. At the end of the day too, in some ways you have to love something in order to hate it. So in that term right there, well, that part, if you haven't tried this vegetable, like you've loved that someone's loved that vegetable, and that's why they can hate that you don't like it at all because you've never even tried it. Like there's so many ways to make vegetables taste better, but you have to try it to know.
Exactly. You know, Chris's rant's done for the day on the podcast here, everyone. Let's do the next question. I got one more question for you, though, AJ.
Okay.
We'll touch a little bit on mental health here. So, if you were walking down the street and came across someone, going through a mental health episode, what would you do personally to help them?
My first thing, I almost talked, I took pretty blah, 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 English, very hard. I talked about almost everybody I walk past, to be honest with you. Like, I've gone into that mindset where it's you never know whose day you can make. And because I've seen it happen so many times, whenever I'm walking somewhere, if I make eye contact with anybody, I always just make it a habit to just say hi, hello, or hey, how are you today? Like, that alone has made such a difference in my life personally, and I've seen the difference it's made in random strangers' life as well, where if I'm walking down the street, I cannot know that someone's going through something, but just the simple act of asking how are they doing or just saying hi, they might just look at me weird and be like, "Oh, I hope your day gets better." And I've said that several times to people and literally watch their reaction and kind of turn and be like, "Thank you for saying that. I've been having a really rough day." And in some cases too, like they just randomly start to open up to you about like things without giving too much detail, and it makes it that much easier for you to just be like, okay, I've either gone through something similar or I don't fully understand this, but the fact that you're taking the time out of your day to listen to them for a few seconds, a few minutes, or just have that genuine conversation with them, it makes a world of a difference. When we live in an age where TikTok's the top search engine, where short form media has become such a big thing in everything that we see and that we take in. We need more people that are actually going to take the time to say, hey, I care about the details. I don't just want you to tell me I'm fine. Okay, damn, that didn't really sound like you're fine. If you're saying that you're fine like that, like it's okay. But if you need to talk, I'm here to listen, just so you know, like that alone could change someone from wanting to harm themselves or wanting to go home and be super depressed and on like, okay, like someone I don't even know who wants to hear about what I have to say. And things change. Like anybody's lives can go from complete shit to a success within the blink of an eye. But there's no such thing as overnight success, but there could be major changes that could happen in your mental psyche that could make everything become a lot better or a lot different in a way that you never have to feel as though you're down in the dumps for the entire time of your life anymore. It's really hard to think about that aspect when you're down in the dumps yourself and you're not having a good time because then you feel like, oh, but you can only like self-loathe for so long before it's like, hey, dust yourself off. You're still alive. You still have breath in your lungs. There's something you can do about this. What can you do about this? Let's figure this out. Let's take this step by step. And sometimes we just have to get a perspective that's completely different from our own perspectives in order for us to help us overcome an obstacle.
Wow, man. I push that a lot too with what you just said, walking down the street, saying hi to someone, or if they, yes, I still have a bad habit of smoking cigarettes, hopefully not too much longer.
You have
I know, but it's a bad vice. Like, even if like I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I don't have my smokes on me or whatever. The homeless people downtown where I live, if they ask me, I have no problem. And I'll ask them how your day's going, or I hope you have a great rest of your day. And sometimes they'll smile, turn back, and just wave. You might not get much out of them, but you know what I mean? Because lots of the people that you do see on the streets, they are dealing with mental health issues, mental illnesses, addictions, homelessness, those types of things. And they're no different than you and I, AJ, because we're one step away from being just like that. It could be us tomorrow. You never know what the hell tomorrow is going to bring. Because I'm not too far away from that either, man. I was not too far removed from that situation myself, not the homelessness part, but the addictions and mental health issues and stuff like that. I don't want to say it's under control, but I got a better grasp on it now that I have clarity with the things I went through, to the traumas I went through and stuff like that. But you never know, like you said, what someone else is going through, or just a random stranger you're walking down the street, hold the door for them, help them
yes,
cross the street. If some old lady or old man needs help with their groceries in the parking lot, help them get them in the car or whatever. There's so many
yes.
different things you can do just to, and another thing I had talked about with artists in recovery, Kalichi, on my show a while back. We talked about that. We got a little bit. Stop fucking videotaping these random acts of kindness people and
It's
posting
not
it for
genuine
clout.
if you do
And,
that.
and that's what I mean. And I wanted to do the same thing at certain points in my life too. And oh, just look at that's shows how fucking blown up and out of whack your ego is if you do that.
Yep.
Like, you don't need credit for every little thing you do. You don't need to go tell everyone that you just did that either. Just
Like
do
it's
it for the sake of fucking doing it.
yeah, literally just be a
So,
good person. It's
rant number
costs
2 over.
nothing.
But no, it costs nothing, like you said. It's so true, AJ.
Man,
And
I
thank you
wish
for
more
your
people.
insights on that.
It's gonna get better. Life will continue to improve for everybody in one way or another, but it costs nothing to be a nice person at all. I
100%,
mean,
man.
maybe a little bit of sanity every here and there.
Before we go though, AJ, I had an amazing time chatting with you on the show, sharing your story and what it made you feel when your mother did pass away, and going through that traumatic experience, man, must have been tough. But you want to let everyone know where they can find you and follow you on your journey as well, man?
Appreciate you having me, first of all, Chris. There's so much that before I let everybody know that, I just also want to thank you because you've also been someone that's reached out to me in times where I've been really down in the dumps, and you've been someone that's constantly reached out to me to make sure that I was doing okay, that I had someone else to talk to, that I was not alone. So also thank you for that. But if you want to continue to follow my journey, I have been pretty inactive on Instagram, but I just now jump back on there, just now posting what I used to post. The things that I care about, pretty much lifting, mental health, and just random posts, to be honest with you. But if you want to find me on Instagram, aj.gibson, and outside of that's also my Twitch without the dot. Side of that, my YouTube is Call Me Lupin.
And just so you guys know, it's Ayjay. It's not your normal just A.J either, everyone. It's Ayjay. In case they want to find you and they're looking at Ayjay Gibson and they're like, where the hell is this man?
Let's do it.
But yeah, before we go though, if there's one thing I could take away, from this episode, it was about redemption and how you came back from these hardships with your mother, what happened to her and how she passed, going through that fire and stuff like that. If that's one thing I could take away from today's show is redemption. So I hope you all had an amazing time listening to the show, and thank you again, AJ, for coming on.
Thank you for having me again, Chris.